Driveline R&D podcast, episode 38. This is Alex Caravan, co-host, co-swag manager of baseball analytics. Drinking a Rona over here. Nice. Lindley.
Kyle Lindley, sports engineer at Driveline Baseball.
What?
Drinking an Elysian Snail Bones IPA.
Good choice, my friend. Good choice.
And
Good one.
oh well, you're gonna like my choice a lot more. Anthony Brady, sports scientist, Driveline Baseball, drinking a White Claw tangerine in solidarity with Ochart. # no gluten gang. Right here with you.
Yes, sir. Celiac squad.
Celiac squad. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck.
#
First
celiac
off, way too
squad.
much talking. Nobody's supposed to talk until I introduce the guest. Today we got Jason Ochart, I think HP intern. Is that right? Is that what your title is with Driveline? High performance intern? I think
One of them, yeah.
Yeah. New customer relations.
I think on a split
intern.
deal. Yeah, high performance intern at Driveline, but actually on a split deal with the Phillies, minor league hitting coordinator over there.
Yeah.
Now Ochart's our director of hitting. Been of Driveline for a while. I mentioned on Twitter, Ocha and I go way back to when we were getting to know each other's life stories back in the old facility when Ochart was the one person in an office with the door. But Och, yeah, man, glad to have you.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys. Big fan of the show. Happy to be here drinking truly with you three. Ready to dig in.
Really kind words. Also, for those listening that can't see, we're all ringing the bell right now. We've got our Phillies gear on, repping for Oach right now. I did have a question though, because I remember you talking about winter meetings. When did you make the switch to like no more beer?
That was
When you went like full on no gluten.
What?
yeah, that was like roughly a year ago. It was
about a
Thanksgiving.
year.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving, and I just had like bad heartburn and like some other stomach issues. My whole family's allergic to gluten.
Yeah.
So I was complaining about it, and my mom was like, "Hey, you idiot, you're allergic to gluten, like all of us are."
Right.
And I just decided to give it a shot for like a week, and everything kind of went away, and the rest is history.
Have you tried any of those gluten-free beer? There's a thriftware right by my place that apparently has gluten-free beer. My roommate tried them. Says they're pretty fire.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to try 'em.
Damn.
Yeah, I've been going with the Moscow Mule. That's like typically my go-to drink with Tito's, but I'm not home at the moment, so I'm in enemy territory. I'm here at Soteropoulos' at his house, and all he has is truly. So
What about
Oach?
are there any ciders are chill, right? Sours?
yeah, ciders are chill.
Och, we'll make some Moscow mules for poker night, dude. I remember you had a pretty good amount of success last time I was drinking Moscow mules with you while gambling.
Caravan's a big Moscow Mule guy. I remember he almost bought 15 of them at a bar once.
I bought 15 of them
Moscow
for,
mules.
Yeah, were you there? I bought them for.
I don't think so.
No,
he
Och,
did.
I think you were there. I might have been hanging out with Jake's. I just bought 15 Moscow mules for all the people behind me.
No, he didn't. He almost did. He gave his card to somebody. Anyways, Ochart, what's the biggest fucking bomb you've ever seen? Hardest ball hit?
Ooh, good question. My first spring training with the Phillies, there's a guy named Dylan Cousins. He was with us, and he spent most of the year in AAA that year. But in big league camp, he hit a ball top of a building in right field at Lakeland, which is Detroit's minor league stadium. I mean, this thing probably went 480 plus feet. It was a 3-0 fastball, and this guy has like light tower power, and he connected on one, and I'll never forget it. The sound and the trajectory and how far it went, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I would have figured it would have been from like a metal bat era bomb. But
Yeah.
And you saw a lot of those at Menlo.
Oh yeah. Daniel Comstock hit some pretty majestic bombs in his time. Shout out Dan, but no, I mean that's got to take the cake. I mean, it comes to my mind right away, but there's certainly been quite a few. I mean, getting to watch like Bryce Harper and some of those big leaguers take BP, like it's a joke how far they hit the baseball.
Yeah. That's what I noticed when we were at the Phillies game like a year ago when we were out on the field for the BP. I was just like, one of the most ridiculous things was watching the Dodgers BP that day. and you could like there would be like 40 minutes and no one would hit a ball that landed in the infield. Like there was like no ground balls or anything, and Muncie would just easily go like 6 for 6 in a round into like the second deck. It was just like so casual, not even trying. It was absurd.
Yeah, it's just different, man, and like everything from the way they hit the ball in the cage, out in the field, the ball flight. It's just different, and it was great for me as a coordinator to be bouncing through levels, right? To really see like the delta between those guys, like going to A ball and then going to AAA, and then you go to maybe the DR and then big leagues, and just to see how different it sounds, how different everything is really. It really helps.
You can tell from just BP.
Totally. BP. Yeah, I mean they hit better balls too, like in fairness, but still, like just everything about it, and not just the hitting. I mean the way that they play defense, the arm strength, the quickness, the instincts. I mean it's just different, and being able to bounce from level to level really helps you kind of like see it.
How much time do you spend at the respective levels usually? Like throughout obviously not this season, but like in your past couple.
Yeah, I think it depends on the org. Last year I spent a lot of time in like AA and in our low A affiliate. We had a lot of like younger guys, and like our Lakewood team, I spent a lot of time there, and it kind of depends. Like the farm director more or less tells us, hey, I want you to go here, I want you to go there, and typically we'll go in and I'll spend the series like 3-4 games at one place, kind of get with all the guys, try and have one-on-one time with all the hitters, watch the work and watch them play series, and then move on to the next affiliate. And the affiliates are pretty convenient because we have a bunch. Like there were either in the Northeast or down in Florida. So I'll fly into Philly. I'll do our AAA, our AA, our Satellite League team, and then our short season A-ball team in Williamsport. So that'll be like one trip. I can drive to all those places, and then I'll fly down to Tampa Airport, go to Clearwater, catch our GCL teams or extended spring training, our Florida State League team, and then hop over to the DR and spend about a week there, and then kind of run that cycle throughout the course of the season. It was a ton of fun. I don't think that'll be the case next year. We'll see what happens with COVID and what they do with sort of the structure of the minor leagues. But it really was a lot of fun to watch that much baseball and to be out in the field again.
Yeah,
you got to play some baseball this year.
That's right.
So
what a year! Yeah, I remember it started in summer camp with the big league guys out there, which was terrifying. My first game. Our bench coach, Tom's, he just goes, "Hey, Och, I need you to play third base." I said, third base of all the positions. And, I'm standing there and like Reese Hoskins is hitting. And I'm thinking like, I don't have cleats on or a cup and I am just going to die. I haven't taken a ground ball in like 4 years and I wasn't good anyway. Luckily I survived, but yeah, I was terrified. And then I got the hang of it. Like as we broke off into the alternate side, I played every day like most of the coaches did. And, yeah, I held my own. The range was no bueno, arm strength no bueno. But if it was hit at me, I made the play like 90% of the time.
You can let the people know, dude. I know you fell in the outfield a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I fell in the outfield. I made the play though.
Oh, okay.
Ball's caught.
That's fair. Yeah.
I was really pissed. I hurt my back pretty bad. I couldn't golf. I couldn't like throw. I couldn't do anything for like a week and a half after that play, which is
I feel bad now.
But
dude, I heard you can't golf anyways. Is that true? That's what Max Engelbrecht was telling me. You can't golf anyways.
That's false.
First big question out the gate. I guess going and feel free to go in as little or as much detail as you want. But obviously going from the hitting department at Driveline, which has been growing the last couple of years, and obviously you started it. Driveline didn't have a hitting department until you came aboard, and you kind of built it from scratch. But in terms of the number of hitters and trainers you were like dealing with, much smaller magnitude than you're obviously dealing with in the Phillies minor league hitting system. What were the big adjustments you had to make? Because obviously when you have a few hitters and a few trainers, it's much easier to evaluate on a micro scale. Okay, this hitter, you can spend this much time looking at his batted ball profile, thinking of drills, thinking of like what his path is. Whereas where you're dealing with organizations, multiple teams, hitters you might not even like know of, or like the process is much bigger? What were the biggest adjustments you had to make in terms of scale?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, I think the scalability of your systems and of your philosophy, I think is the hardest thing to build. And, the thing I had to learn right away, because we have, 125 to 140 hitters, got 9 different teams, that's 9 different hitting coaches. And, I can only be in one place at one time. So being able to develop a system and be able to, try and impact as many players as you can, it's tough. It's tough. And that's what a coordinator does. So, and at Driveline, I was able, especially early on, I was able to work with all the players more or less, be on the floor every day, coach a lot, spend a lot of time in the cages. And shifting to the role with the Phillies, it was like, I'm lucky to get with a hitter maybe 3 or 4 times a whole year. Right. So in spring training, we got all these players and, they're trying to make clubs. So we're not doing a whole lot of coaching and like tinkering anyway. But, to be able to get one-on-one time with a guy or even have like a conversation is tough, especially as you scale that across a bunch of players. So yeah, I mean, it was hard. And I think a lot of it came down to trusting the staff. And I was fortunate to inherit a really good coaching staff. Our hitting coaches are awesome, super, well-versed in all the aspects of being a hitting coach, but we're really open-minded to learning some of the stuff we were trying to implement, stuff that we've been doing at Driveline, and using it to make players better, right? So there was no ego when I came in, where they certainly had some reason to maybe be upset that someone like myself, who never played and never coached in professional baseball, jumped right into a coordinator role. But they really were awesome and created a really good sort of environment and culture for learning as a staff. So we could all sort of help our players get better. So I think that was probably the hardest part. And then leveraging R&D and like tool building and, sort of taking our logic and putting it into tools that are automated, I think was huge, right? So being able to say like, these are the things that are important that we want to track with our players, and how can we flag them automatically without having to like be able to watch every single game or read all the reports and all the TrackMan data like all the time. It's just impossible. So you have to build tools to kind of help.
Yeah. So would you say that the problems, I guess, that you have to solve, or the things that you need to attack, were like pretty similar from like your time at Driveline compared to like now, with the Phillies? Like I would guess that the types of things that you're working on hitter to hitter have changed quite a bit from like Menlo to Driveline to now like Phillies coordinator. Or is there like some underlying ones that just like stick through, like with all hitters?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of crossover for sure, a lot of similarities. Obviously, the obvious one is the caliber of player is different. And then the nature of the relationship too.
Okay.
And I think at Driveline, I mean, like by definition, the players are bought in, right? When they come in, they typically know who I am. They know the program. They're like literally paying to be there. Yeah. So there doesn't, you don't have to like sell them. Yeah. And be like, hey, you need to swing away to bats. This is why, and go through this whole spiel. And like, we need to train at game speed, and you're going to fail in practice, and let's do these new things and use this sensor. And a lot of those things that like took time to implement and generate buy-in with the Phillies, with Driveline, even with Menlo, like with that group. I think because I was a hitting coach and it's a smaller group, you're able to just kind of like implement things immediately with zero resistance, when that's just not the case when you're dealing with really good players that have, had enough success to get paid to play and get drafted or signed. And then, get introduced to completely new ideas that for most of them, these things like bat sensors or crazy training with pitching machines or K-Vest or using their TrackMan data to generate game plans or identify weaknesses or focus errors or whatever, like all that stuff was new for them. So there's a lot of conversations on the front end, developing trust with the players and teaching and asking them questions. And at the end of the day, like I work for them, really. I'm trying to help them get to the big leagues. And I think the relationship building early on and the trust building, like I said, is key. And it takes a lot of like deliberate effort.
Yeah.
Is there one tech or one kind of more progressive method that you expected would get more pushback but didn't?
That's a good question. I would say probably the K-Vest. It's definitely of all of them, like probably the hardest to roll out and the one that requires the most like manual labor, I suppose. Like you got to put it on and kind of run through it and troubleshoot it and like do all those things. Yeah. Whereas the others are like most of them are already exist, or just like throw a sensor on. Right. But I think hitters in general, like they just love talking about their swing. They love talking about mechanics. They love talking about their movements. And the K-Vest I thought would be met with a lot of resistance, but turns out all the players, like those with experience with it and those without, were really open to it and really excited. And when you explain it to them and say like, look, this measures, your posture, it measures how well you're transferring energy up through your body. It measures, your hip speed and your separation, all these things that are important. And we'll spend time in, when we do a lot of like classroom session type stuff with the Phillies, explaining the importance of these things and of these movements. And we'll show them big leaguers that do them well. And once we started to roll that out, the guys, they were really excited about it and asking a lot of questions, and it ended up being probably the most popular out of all the things we rolled out.
You talking about our validation of K-Vest?
What?
Maybe not with the players.
I was gonna say
I'll just send them your write up.
That's interesting because like the K-Vest definitely out of like all the technology pieces requires the most like technical skill from an interpretation standpoint. Like I think it's like by far the hardest to understand for just like a player. Like bat speed's pretty clear, attack angle's pretty clear, but like talking to people about like kinematic sequence and kinematics and like all that stuff definitely a lot harder than you swing this hard or this fast.
Dude, I don't know if attack angle is that clear though. I don't know if attack angle is that clear.
Oh, I think relative to that though, attack angle is pretty like like launch angle, exit velo, those kind of things.
And these things too, like you got to understand, half the players don't even speak English, right? So like this stuff's hard enough to explain in English. Yeah. Let alone to someone with a language barrier through a translator, right? So I've really learned, it's been like quite the constraint as a coach. Like I've really learned how to be efficient in language and how to explain things in ways that are accurate, but also concise and not too like fluffed up by big words that we're trying to sound smart.
Yeah. I think 3D visualization in like of movement is really powerful too. I think like I've experienced it with the 3D motion capture that we do with the optical system. I experienced in the last few weeks with K-Vest. It's like players love seeing, especially with K-Vest, because they have like not only the visuals that we can do with it after the data is all collected, but they have like the live 3D visual of a simplified version of their body. So it's like really easy to see what their arm, torso, and like basically like hips are doing. And I feel like the players love to see that, and it like seems to like pique interest a lot better than something that you can't like see what the results are. It's like if one athlete's getting the K-Vest thrown on them and then you can see their swing live, which is really cool. Like other athletes are looking at it. Oh, what's that? Like, what are we shooting for? What is this measuring? Because they could see it. They could see it. It's clearly measuring something. And I think that part is really valuable for K-Vest and makes it a little bit more potentially is one of the reasons why it makes it more like desirable for the players.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, Lindley and I were talking about it, I think like a couple of podcasts ago, but I really do think like biomechanics reporting gets to its most effective place when there are like no numbers and no graphs. And it's just like visual representations, of just like the body postures. Like in the K-Vest PDFs, like even when it just shows like that torso and the lines through it for like hip shoulder separation, that's way more valuable than like the number to the side that says negative 13 degrees. Like I doubt anyone even like understands that or, like understands the angle in space. But the image of like the tilted, torso, that's the real value. And I think on the pitching side too, the quicker we can get to like just throwing out like the tabular data and the graphs, I think it'll be way more effective in terms of like athlete facing communication.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. I mean, the graphs it's just like colors and lines to the player, and it's just they don't care. And unless you really take the time to teach them, and some of them will be interested in that. And like, I'll totally do that. We have maybe a handful of players that are like your future coach types, like the young Anthony Brady's that really are interested in this stuff, that want to learn. And, we'll spend time off to the side, like kind of breaking down what it means and what the graphs represent and what each axis represents and why it's important, stuff like that. But you're spot on for the visualizations and how,
like on the back,
how powerful they are. Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. Like these players, I thought coming into the job they would be like apprehensive to try a lot of this new stuff, but it's been the opposite. I mean, these guys they have a dream to get better, and when you start to use this stuff, they start to ask questions like, okay, I'm obviously not as good as I want to be right now because I want to be in the big leagues.
Right.
And that's all these guys feel the same way. Even the kids that are like 18, like they think they're better than they've performed thus far. That's just how these like professional athletes are ingrained. So when you can show them tools that potentially could like flag areas where they can improve, I think you generate excitement. And on the contrary, like I remember having a guy in AAA, and we did the GAVAS with him, and like as far as I could tell, everything was fine. I was like, no, it's great. It looks really good. And he was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Damn it. Are you serious?
Yeah. Something to work on.
Yeah. It's like, I need to get better. Like that's the wrong answer. I was hoping that you'd find something wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mentality that most of these players have.
Yeah. Everyone's always looking for like the magic bullet in the reports. It's like the most common question on the pitching side is just like, okay, so if I do this plus 3 miles an hour, right? It's like,
yeah.
What?
Is there kind of do you have any rule of thumbs when it comes to evaluating athletes? Like, okay, first collect data on them for X amount of days or X amount of swings, or with like Y amount of technologies, then you like suggest, or then like you start talking, changing either an approach or a swing or something, or is it, or is that kind of stuff like, or are you making more general systems and having like hitting coaches implement that kind of stuff? Like, do you have any either general or specific rules? I mean, I guess without giving away any of your secret sauce, but like, do you have a general initial approach when it comes to like, evaluating a hitter and prescribing him something?
No, great question. I think, I mean, yes, for sure. And it's the same more or less as Driveline, right? Just because like, obviously I work at both. And I'd say there's 3 main areas really. And one is bat speed, right? So the ability to hit the ball hard, to move the bat fast. 2 is barrel control. So like some form of precision. Like can you make consistent contact? Do you swing and miss? There's a variety of metrics we can look at there. And then the third one is more like strategy, game planning, approach, or game plan. Yeah, like whatever you want to call it in baseball. But looking at those 3 areas, we can kind of assess how a player is doing in those 3 areas. And the sample size you need for each of those 3 is kind of unique. I think for bat speed, we can get, throw a bat sensor on and, in a couple of days, get a pretty good idea of like where they're at. With the bat to ball stuff, it takes a lot more data off of, live pitching. So like if we draft a kid out of the SEC, like we'll have an idea right away. Whereas if we take a high school kid, probably not. Probably going to have to maybe do like a subjective analysis based on watching him play a short season or extended spring training, or watch him train off the machine or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then swing decisions, it's the same. Like you need a larger sample to really like understand where they're at. So yeah, I mean, like once a guy goes through like a whole, 400 at bats, 400 at bats, I think we have a pretty good idea of like where they're at in those 3 areas, and we can start to really make a game plan for them.
Yeah.
So in that situation, sorry, really quick, I was gonna follow up with so in that situation, someone comes in, you draft someone, and they have, let's say, 2 to 3 seasons of college data, and then, you throw them against the machine. You start like mixing in like scrimmages. You start mixing them against live pitching. At what point, like, do you have any general rule of thumb? At what point you kind of switch over to the new approach in live pitching and pro ball, right? Rather than, because initially, you have the college game data. So this guy You go like this guy swings 6% of the time in the zone, whatever stats may be or his profile. Do you kind of have a general rule of thumb at what point you start switching over to the pro ball or weighing the pro ball data more than either college data or high school data or whatever you had on him previously?
Yeah, I mean, I think current data against a professional competition is always going to be the most valuable, right? And depending on the metric we're using, like they start to stabilize at different sort of like numbers of events, right? So I guess it just kind of depends, and I think it does get tricky because like you're saying, like if we get a kid that has, like average bat to ball skills in college baseball, how does that scale to say like the Florida State League or whatever, right? So it's kind of hard to project or extrapolate how some of these skills scale up, with the exception of maybe bat speed. That's like pretty linear across, but the other two are really, subject to competition and like good stuff. So we always try and like make our decisions based on, the newer data against professional pitching at the level they're at, but at the same time, we can't jump to conclusions based on, maybe 30 at bats. Yeah. Because, the data hasn't stabilized yet.
Out of those three like categories of evaluation for a hitter that you talked about, so like the bat speed, type metrics, bat to ball, and then strategy. Like I assume I know your answer, but like which one of those do you think deserves more attention from a like tech standpoint or reporting standpoint? And or are there like is there one of those that coaches and players are kind of wanting more attention from the people who are developing these products for evaluating players?
Yeah, I mean, I think bat speed is king for sure. If you want my opinion, I think that's where the focus should be for a large majority of players, especially amateur players. As far as what the players actually want, I would say a lot of it is most of them want the approach sort of feedback, right? Wow. If you talk to them about, especially in season, like most of these guys aren't going to want to do bat speed training in season or drills to improve their bat to ball. Like these are not things that they even like think about, to be honest. They want to talk about their approach and whether they're swinging at good pitches and are they, doing well with two strikes and situational hitting. These are the things that like in baseball culture, we've been like hammering into players' heads their whole career. And I would say that like the majority of hitting coaches are very, very good at that. Like the majority of professional coaches, especially at the big league hitting coaches I've talked to are just like experts in that sort of strategy and game planning. Really? And that's what big league guys want. Like when, Bryce Harper is like in the hole and he's over there, like talking to the hitting coach, they're talking about a game plan. Okay. What does he throw? What pitch should I eliminate? Should I cut off half the plate? Like whatever it is. I don't particularly know his game plan, but I think that's what most of the players, especially in season, like they want that sort of feedback and they want a coach to provide them with some sort of structure as far as how to game plan through their ABs.
Is that mostly dependent on the pitcher or like regardless of the pitcher? Like, are you able to do a lot of like working on approach where it doesn't matter who they're about to face, or is a lot of it dependent on like who they're about to face?
Yeah, it depends on it's like a totally dynamic sort of thing. I mean, it depends on the hitter and what their approach is and how technical and how advanced they want to be. Right. Some hitters, especially at the lower levels, like their approach is, hit a fastball. Right. Where when you get to the big leagues, a lot of these guys have like crazy dynamic approaches that are just like a million of like if-then statements in their head, which they don't think about it like that. But it really depends on the guy and also the pitcher. Like if you're facing, say, like a 2-pitch bullpen arm that throws like a four-seam and a slider or whatever, that your game plan is going to be different than, say, off Trevor Bauer, who throws 5 pitches, or Yu Darvish, who has like 18 pitches or whatever. So how you structure your actual approach depends on the pitcher and like the type of pitcher. Mm-hmm. If they're a power pitcher or a guy with command, maybe now you have to sit on a half of the plate. Yeah. As opposed to most guys, I would say most hitters probably sit middle half of the plate for the most part and look for pitches or speeds. Right. But when you face a guy with like plus command, you probably got to shift in or out, or Yeah, it's a totally like dynamic sort of chess match, and it's something I love to talk about, to be honest.
Right.
But
Are scouting reports at the minor league level, well, let me rephrase. How common or fleshed out are scouting reports usually at the minor league level? I've seen a few at the major league level, and obviously those are, you have much more. You usually have more data and more analysts kind of working on that. But is that a common thing at all going into a minor league game, having a full-fledged scouting report on the opposing team pitcher and how he likes to approach like certain counts, etc.?
it depends on the organization for sure. And I don't want to say too much, but like we more or less, like for obvious reasons, try to structure our game planning and our advanced reports around what they're going to be using in the big leagues, because it wouldn't be fair to Alec Boehm if like we use one system and then he goes to the big leagues when it's like the most important.
Right.
His whole career now is like completely different. So working with the like the R&D and the advanced like scouting staff in the big leagues it's been huge, and more or less like mirroring how those reports look and then sort of like throttling it by level. So obviously like AA and AAA, those guys are a call away. So it should be more or less the same game plan.
Yeah.
Same report, same one pager or whatever. And then as we go down levels, we sort of like progress them up, and it might start at the lower levels with just velocities and pitch types and some like basic percentages and different count states.
Right.
And then as we get up, now we're going to start talking about like fastball movement and some more like granular situations. And then that's also when we start teaching more approaches with guys, right? We start talking about sitting on pitches and different sort of game plans, like whether you're focusing on a target on the field or a zone in the, or a speed, hard or soft or whatever. And at the end of the day, like our job is to teach the players how to find out the approach that works for them, because if you talk to like 10 big league hitters, you're probably gonna get 10 different approaches. And in my experience, like the best ones are pretty dynamic. Like it changes based on the situation of the game more or less, and the pitcher they're facing and stuff like that. So being able to help them and help them sort of like discover the approach that works for them, that's the ultimate goal. And we just try to provide all the tools for them that allow them to do that.
Yeah. All right, we got two questions in the chat from the viewers. First one, real quick. How many Bauer Players Weekend jerseys did you buy?
0, actually.
Oh.
I do have one though. Trevor was kind enough to save his game worn one and sign it with a nice message. I think there was an F-bomb on the back of the jersey.
I actually just saw that at the facility when I was moving stuff around.
It's one of my most prized possessions.
Yeah.
But I should buy a couple more actually.
Get a couple,
and just put them like everywhere.
All right, the next one. This is actually a really good question. Like with club fitting for golf, have you ever had to tell a big leaguer that he swings a bat that is too big or small for him?
No. I would say like the dynamic of my relationship with the big league players is not one where I would be like telling them anything unless they asked. I'm the minor league coordinator. I'm not going to go to like
So even at the minor league level,
like we've rolled out some bat fitting, and at the end of the day, like it's their career, but we can like make strong suggestions. Yeah, and I did it actually in instructional league. We had a player that was swinging a bat that was like 35-inch bat, which he needed to improve his bat to ball skill, and like it just wasn't the right tool for him. So. We encouraged him to try it. And like our approach was, we think you're using the wrong bat. This is why. And I would appreciate it. I think it'd be smart, especially here in instructional league, if you gave it 10 at bats, like just give me 10 at bats, see what happens. And I think he got like 4 or 5 hits, couple with 2 strikes. And he liked it. He could have been lying to me, but it seemed like he liked it. And we done certain things like too with players where we kind of run them through the same bat fitting that we did at Driveline. Where different lengths and weights and weight distributions, handle types, stuff like that, and then provide them with some feedback as to like, okay, you hit the ball hardest with this bat, you were most accurate with this bat, or maybe all of the above with this particular bat, and then at the end of the day, like it's their career, right? So most of them, like all of them, basically will use the bat that they're best suited for after we kind of test it, but Most of minor leaguers too, like to be totally honest, like can't afford to be buying like a bunch of bats. They just use stock. They just use stock bats. And
I know we've talked about this before, but have you ever like encountered a hitter or someone who has like an arsenal of bats depending on the pitcher?
I wouldn't say an arsenal.
Maybe just like two.
Yeah. There are guys that have really? 2 or 3. Yeah. And there are a couple that on our big league team that have bats, and then maybe it's a subtle, like one guy.
Right. I
think it's a half ounce difference.
Yeah.
And one of them's for
interesting.
Velocity versus like your average or below average velocity. I am like super in on that idea. I know you know that about me. I think there's going to be a day where like guys are going to use end loaded bats versus like sinker ballers and lighter bats that are like cupped for 4-seam guys. And different grips. Like we did that study with the split grip and how that brings your barrel higher and like starting to, adjust your actual implement plus your grip plus your setup and different things to kind of prepare to face different pitch types. I think that's a huge area where you could, as a hitter, like gain a competitive advantage and something they do in other sports.
Yeah, I mean, if you already make the changes like mechanically based on like count or pitcher that you're facing, like changing the implement does seem like easier, if not the same in like a lot of regards. Or like making that. I talked to Dan a lot about doing that on the pitching side. Like I still want to develop like an arsenal that I use against righties and like one that I use against lefties, And I'm talking like different slots, sides of the mound, arm angle, whatever it is, kind of a thing. I think that could still be, like useful.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that for hitters, I mean, you like the way we teach it, like on an elementary level, is like you have 2 different count states, basically like with and without 2 strikes.
Right.
And it seems silly that you would use like the same bat for both those situations, right?
Yeah.
And some hitters will like choke up or make swing changes with 2 strikes, but I think there's more there that can be had with adjustments with your bat. And like it's another reason I think the differential training is so valuable too, like that we do at Driveline with the short bat and long bat and all the heavy and light bat and all that stuff, because you start to develop like sort of touch. So now you're probably more like able to use different bats in different counts and adjust on the fly.
I'd be so down to see a guy just like call time in the middle of in a bat and just like swap out bats with a bat boy.
2-strike bat, baby. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen.
He just like takes the first 2 pitches and then he's like he just like signals to the bat boy like change him out. That'd be so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's
different gloves too.
Oh yeah, just switches everything up.
There we go.
There isn't like a rule against that, right? Like you could just like change bats.
Someone told me that you can't unless it's broken, so you'd have to like snap it over your knee or something. I haven't confirmed that, but I talked to like Axpat about this too, like creating some sort of like axe handle that's like up the handle too, so you have like your regular bat, and then it's like okay, now we can shift to like 2 strikes. Yeah,
interesting.
Get on the plate and it's interesting, man. Like I think there's something there. Like I think a hitter should have a driver and pitching wedge or whatever. Like it's a bad analogy, but I think you get what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Wonder if you can change something that's not the bat, like outside of your grip, like if you added weight to your gloves or something, because there's a study with wearable resistance and I think I don't know if it was javelin or handball or something, but arm speed was higher with a certain weight added to the thrower's arm, like upper arm.
Yeah.
So like depending on the inertial properties or whatever, like could be a way to like basically a handle load just by throwing something in your glove.
Yeah, that's 2016 Driveline hitting right there. I bought weighted gloves and we were using.
Oh, let's
them.
go! No way.
And we even had these like wristbands that were heavy, that were like weighted. And my like Galaxy Brain idea was like shifting them up and down your arm for just to see what happens. But I think there's something there maybe.
I remember us talking on one of the earlier R&D podcast episodes about that study we looked at with the overweight, underweight, and then like someone warming up with an overweight bat and then right after like swinging a normal bat faster. Right. What are your thoughts on that, Ochart? Like someone someone just having like a regimented, I mean, obviously you put the donut on and stuff, but like having either weighted donuts or having like something even heavier than that, and then like prepping, maybe having like 2 different weights of the bat, like an on deck circle, and then stepping up the bat. Like, do you have any thoughts on like that kind of variability right before game time, or like right before like an at bat?
And you're talking about like using both those bats in the game, or just doing it on deck?
Yeah, just like prepping yourself with different weights right before. Because I remember, I don't know if either of you guys remember the exact parameters of that study, but I think it was something like that. It was like, do you remember, Lindley?
Yeah, it was a super heavy bat, and then the bat speed was lower after using a heavy bat before going up to, or like taking hacks off a tee or something. And the light bat, I think, were potentially, or like elicited higher bat speeds.
Yeah, the light bat was faster. Like so like instead of swinging, if anything, like a heavier bat right before people swing a lighter bats, then they step up and like have their at bat.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Totally. I've had underloads on deck before with guys for sure. Yeah, no doubt. I think like on deck preparation is like total eyewash right now. Like what we do, I think there's a lot that could be discovered as far as like using lighter bats, other sorts of like PAP or like other sorts of preparation visually too, like ways to get yourself ready instead of like, throwing on a weight and like taking some like eyewash swings and walking to play. I think there is certainly a better way to prepare that needs to be investigated for sure.
Do you think more so like on the physical preparation side? Because I feel like it's largely thought of now as just like mentally preparing yourself, like routines and rhythm. But do you think there's like quite a bit on like the physical side that we could get into the on deck circle?
Yeah, totally. Like it wouldn't surprise me if there's going to be like a band on an on deck circle where guys are doing like some sort of like paddle off press or something like that, getting hot, or some sort of like squat, do some Terrys. They got a balloon laying down now, but some sort of way to prepare their body better than what they currently do, because it's just kind of like silly and antiquated. And I think that throughout the course of the season, man, like these guys get beat up and their bodies like just don't feel good. And there's got to be a better way to prepare than throwing on a weight and taking like 8 swings at 50%.
Do you have any thoughts about virtual reality training or anything along those lines? Either as a small component of general preparation, or just to cue something or train a specific like swing and approach?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that technology. I think there's some good companies out there right now. I have like a lot of concerns about the precision of it, and I think that the VR now is like so close to reality, and you're getting feedback on like timing or swing decisions and pitch recognition and things like that. And my concern is like if it's not precise and if it's not exactly the same as it is in the game, like the transfer is going to be, there is going to be transfer because it's so similar. But if a guy goes up there and he takes like 1,000 reps on this VR headset where he's getting timing on his feedback and it's like a half millisecond off or like 3 feet off, like what's that going to do to their performance in game? Those are like my concerns, and maybe that's not a good mentality to take, but I think the technology is like getting really close to being there, but it's not quite to where I'm confident to roll it out to our guys at Driveline or with the Phillies, where these guys are expensive and like naturally I think we can be risk averse when dealing with players that we've invested that much money in, and if there's a technology that I'm not certain will get them better, I'm a little hesitant to experiment with players of that caliber. Does that make sense? I mean, is that like a valid concern?
I was just gonna say. I think this is pretty obvious for the 4 of us, and then maybe a good amount of listeners as well. But I'm assuming in general, like one of the, and this is kind of a question that's been asked before, but one of the bigger differences in training hitters at Driveline versus with the Phillies, like the fact that people at Driveline are bought in and also more cognizant of kind of what their goals are and where they are now. They're probably a bit more like willing to take risks and or try like new methods that don't necessarily have a ton of like tradition behind it. We're on the major league side. That's, you've got to be really sure, and you've got to be really sure when you trot it out that you have like a really good basis for doing it. Whereas like at Driveline, all the time we run like studies, we run experiments. The intent is clear, right? We're trying to learn more about a hitter or a pitcher or a movement or something. But then like we're also telling them like we're not sure what this is going to do. Like we're going to have you take swings doing this. This technology is going to measure you, and we'll let you know in like a couple months what we find. Whereas like, you know, with players that are currently like on a ticking time clock to get to the bigs, that's probably not a luxury you can afford.
Yep, but at the same time, I feel like I can think of like a bunch of things that they do in pro ball that like don't make sense from like an inefficiency point, from like a scientific standpoint, and like arguably aren't, you know, a safe way to handle your investments compared to like AR or virtual reality training. You know, like I can just think of a lot of things where it's like, why would you do that? And that happens in pro ball a lot. So I don't know. I think there's definitely room for pro ball teams to be less risk averse because they already do things that they think are not that risky that I just like don't understand.
Oh yeah. Of course. I just meant that those are traditional though, right? Like I'm assuming like they're just slower to change. They just got to be by definition.
Yeah. I also think the difference there is that like I had never really thought about that, Ochart, about how like it could be really good or really close, but like too good because then if it's wrong, like slightly, then it could have a negative effect. I've never really thought about that. I've always thought of it as like, okay, is it going to be close enough to have transfer, like transfer or not transfer, rather than like good transfer versus bad transfer, which is like a whole other problem that I haven't put much thought into having to tackle. Whereas like a lot of the traditional things that happen in pro ball, like, I don't know, just like thinking of a couple, like a lot of players think they're swinging down or whatever, but really they have a positive attack angle, like things like that. If they're like swinging down in the on deck circle, like, yeah, that's traditional, things like that, or like hitting off BP. But again, maybe those just don't transfer. So the same problem doesn't like exactly apply as if it was AR when it does transfer and there's a potential for a negative adaptation.
Yeah,
I don't know. Obviously,
no, it's spot on. It's like a blessing and a curse that it's certainly going to have transfer. Yeah. Right? You just don't know if it's precise or not. And like to your comment about like risk averse in professional baseball, like I totally get it. I think my fear is like, you know, I remember we had like a VR sort of like demo, and these guys were like, "Hey, we should get that on Alec Boehm and like see if you can do it." I'm like, Alec Boehm has like incredible pitch recognition, like the best I've ever seen. And I was like, for the love of God, like don't even look at him, like just stay away, you know? Yeah. And like those are things that you got to deal with it as a coordinator, right? Because you have players that have been invested in by the organization. They have agents, they have, you know, like there's a lot of other factors to it. And like, to your point at Driveline, like they literally sign away, like, you know, like they know that they're going to be guinea pigs more or less when they come in. And like, we're certainly not like harming anyone, but you know, definitely, you know, like more open to experimentation at the Driveline culture and the Driveline environment, especially because it's in the off season too. I think that's an important part of it too. Like in the off season, players are naturally more open to trying new things and making swing changes or just kind of going out of the routine. Whereas in the season, most guys like, the last thing they want to do is make a swing change when they got to go see like 95 at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Do you come across a lot of athletes or not a lot of athletes in pro ball or in your experience in pro ball so far that are like really looking for that type of training? They're like, what's the next best thing? Like, what's the thing I can maybe get an edge on? Like, what do we think the proportions are of people who are just like, no, just let me do my thing versus guys who are like trying to find a new thing that is kind of untapped?
I'd say the overwhelming majority are sort of just like, let me play kind of, you know, maybe sort of like throw some feedback in there on like little things, but you know, I would even go as far as to say that like the players that are always looking for stuff even get like a bad rap. And it's kind of like stigmatized to be like a tinkerer or someone that's always messing with their swing, or like, you know, like if you show up with the tech, like a tool or like a funny drill or whatever, people are like, what the fuck this guy doing? Like he's freaking hitting Twitter like nerd or whatever. I'd say the overwhelming majority of players are you know, like kind of, I want to say set in their ways. Like they're totally open to things, but there is a threshold where like it would be very surprising to see a hitter like show up in the cage with like, you know, a VR headset that he purchased on his own.
Right.
And like, you know,
I was going to ask
reports that he created himself or something like that.
In that regard, I was going to ask, how important or prevalent do you find the educational aspect, especially maybe in pro ball, where like we've mentioned in Driveline, like maybe they've come to Driveline because they've followed our stuff and read a bunch of blogs. Like, do you have any thoughts towards like a general educational piece to accompany hitters or coaches even, and like how's kind of like what are your thoughts towards implementing that, and or like what's the most key thing you can do to educate a hitter if you're in that situation?
Yeah, spot on, man. The education is everything, honestly, and like that is so key. And like we do classroom sessions all the time, and I'm like really passionate about teaching. My family's all teachers. I actually wanted to be a teacher before I got into coaching. And
dude, I didn't know this, bro. You're dropping. I'm learning about you on this podcast.
There we go. Yeah, I love teaching, and we do a lot. Like the players probably get sick of it, but like every morning in spring training and you know, very often throughout the season, especially when I'm in town, like we'll do classroom sessions. And I understand the attention span is not like great, and these guys are like physically and mentally fatigued, so we keep it to like 10-15 minutes, but there's a lot of teaching that goes on. And we talk about, you know, like I literally have like a curriculum that I built out for our players. Like here's year one, here's like what we're gonna roll out year two, and there's like layers to it, obviously, but it starts with, you know, like the organizational philosophy, what we believe in, what we teach, what's important. And then I'm really honest with the players. Like, here's what makes guys good, right? We talk about those three things that I mentioned earlier in the podcast. Like, I just flat out tell them, like, here are the three things that make hitters good. Here's why. Like, here's data to support it. This is why it's important. And that's why, like, Kyle, you're in the bat speed program, and Caravan's in the swing decision program, and Brady's in the barrel control program.
I swing a bat fast, dog.
No clue where it's going. But yeah,
it's funny. I actually have a video of him missing a ball on a tee, so that's perfect.
Yikes. Yeah. Yikes. But yeah, a ton of education, and a lot of educating staff too, and like letting them teach also.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, as a coordinator, I'm only going to be as good, and the organization's only going to be as good as the hitting coaches, because they're the ones that are there every day, you know, with the guys in the trenches, in the cages. And frankly, those are the guys that the players like really trust, because you're there with them, you know, and a good hitting coach is like the top step with you in the game. You know, like you almost feel as a hitter like they're in the batter's box with you, because they helped you. They're like living and dying by every pitch. And I think that relationship is so key. So being able to empower our staff to learn and to understand this stuff, and then kind of step away, much like I've done here, even at Driveline with our staff. Like, as a leader, you have to empower and teach, and then step away and kind of let them discover their own coaching style, and use the tools and the information that you provided them, and then let them kind of do it their own way. And I think that's how you can scale a philosophy across the whole organization.
Yeah.
Dude, so who's your favorite hitting coach of the Phillies? Just kidding.
Just on the spot questions.
I was trying to mix in one where I put Ochart super on the spot. I was too fast to say just kidding. But no, we got a couple semi on the spot but fun ones, dude. If you're down. I think we asked this before on air, but I don't know if you want to give him a shout out or not. We were gonna ask what was your favorite interview besides this one, obviously, or what podcasts or shows have you really enjoyed going on, and or pieces, dude. You're a big name now, so you know your Google search goes at least 2 or 3 pages, bro. I was checking it before the podcast.
Really? Oh boy, that's not good. That's a good question, man. I really enjoyed doing a podcast, like I told you guys earlier, called High Hopes, with some couple Phillies fans. That was good. I did one with Jeremy Sheetinger with the ABCA back when he was kind of running the show with the ABCA. I thought that was fun.
Oh yeah.
Geez, I'm drawing a blank. I mean, I've done a handful over the year. I really enjoy all of them, to be honest. And I'm always like hashtag humbled and blessed that people are interested in what I have to say. But yeah, I'd probably say those two, and then yeah. And then this one obviously has been my favorite.
Nice save there. Nice save.
Yeah.
What's your favorite viral moment? Because I know you got at least. I mean, you got a whole article by Eno written about you and your brother. You had that one tweet about that old dude in the parking lot talking about golf or something. What was that? Your tweet was like, yeah, I don't even know, but that tweet got like 10K likes. Like, yeah. What's been kind of like your favorite thing that randomly blew up that you weren't expecting?
Probably like the Eno article, my brother, because him and I are really close, and like he's really the only reason that I got into coaching. Like I've always loved, like I mentioned, teaching and coaching, but after I graduated college, he I had just started to like sort of like see the light, if you will. Like I realized towards the end of my senior year, as I was studying sports science, that I started to realize that like all the shit that I was doing as a player was wrong. Mm-hmm. Right. Like I was like watching good hitters hit. And then I was thinking about like the way that I tried to hit. It's like, okay, something's off here. And I took physiology and biomechanics and anatomy and like all these things. And I realized like, oh God, like I'm not even close to being right. So I got really passionate about learning about hitting and kind of got like obsessive over it. Mm-hmm. So I coached my brother a lot, which we talk about, and I, and he put in that article, but that's kind of how it all started. And like him and I are really close, and like that I owe him so much because he trusted me and he let me screw him up and let me fix him. And then he dragged me to coach. Like when the Menlo job opened, I was going to go actually to probably physical therapy school. Mm. My brother, he calls me, he goes, hey, like one of our coaches, Tufo, he just left to Santa Clara. Like there's an opening. Do you want to come be a coach just for a couple of years? I really want you to be here. I want you to be a part of it. I want you to watch me play my last 2 years of college. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's a good move for me. It's a volunteer job. And he just like called the head coach on his phone and just like handed me the phone. And forced the issue. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like I'll coach college baseball for a couple of years. My parents helped me out financially because I didn't make any money, but they were like, look, you're going to take care of your little brother. And it's important to both you guys that you get to kind of like be in each other's lives. And I get to keep coaching him. And that's how it all started. And I fell in love with it. And I kind of had nothing to lose because in my mind, I was like, I'm just going to coach for 2 years. And then go back to like the real world, so to speak. So we implemented like all this crazy stuff, like weighted bat training and like hitting off machines like crazy and like hitting freaking bombs, like just doing all different sort of training that we do now at Driveline more or less. But I think speaking of risk averse, right? Like there was no risk at all. Cause I was like, whatever, like I'm just going to do this for fun and just like freaking send it and see what happens. And, fast forward, like I'm here, and I'm super happy to be here. And I think it all started because my brother trusted in me and like actually pushed me to do it and to do something that like at the time was probably stupid career wise, but ended up paying off.
Do you want to talk about, we didn't really mention this in the interview. I know you've talked about this quite a bit, but I figured for anyone that hasn't heard, it's pretty interesting and I think motivating, like how you kind of went from that to starting the Department of Hitting at Driveline, like how you and Bodie first met each other. And if you're trying to answer a 3-part question, mix in some pros and cons of baseball Twitter in 2020 and the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I could talk for like hours about this, but I'll be short. More or less, I started coaching my first year. I just did outfield, base running, and strength and conditioning. But I had a passion for hitting, and I was like still coaching my brother like on the side, and other players like Comstock and a few other guys were like starting to like poke at me, but I didn't want to like undermine the current hitting coach. And then after he left, I became the hitting coach, and we did like some really cool stuff. And one thing I really wanted to implement was video. Like as you guys know, like I love hitting video, I love swing video. So we started filming all the swings. Like I had set up actually an iPhone and with like a little octopus tripod in the dugout and just filmed like all the games and would clip all the swings and put them in the folders. And I didn't have a great way of like sharing with the players. So I just started a Twitter and I just added the players and just started posting like home run videos on Twitter, and like they blew up. It turns out like people love like leg kicks and long home runs. So it was like crazy. Like guys were just like retweeting, and then like I made like a little sort of like montage of home runs, and I went viral. Actually, that's probably like my favorite viral video. And I developed this like Twitter following just from people that like seeing home runs, and they liked seeing what we were doing. I started posting like leaderboards and like some of the drills we were doing. At one point, it's kind of a trip, but like we had like a fungo golf tournament during a rain delay when we were playing Arizona Christian, and the guy playing on the other team was Tanner Stokey.
Oh yeah,
who's our hitting manager now, and who ended up hiring him at Driveline a little later. But that was kind of interesting. But
yeah.
Anyway, Kyle caught wind of it. Actually, he retweeted like one of my tweets, and the tweet was, "The best 2-strike approach is to not get to 2 strikes." And he retweeted, and that was like my first like big tweet. Like I got like 50 retweets or something. I remember like,
okay, dude, I still haven't gone 50 retweets, bro. You don't have to rub it in, dog.
Yeah, but I was fired up. I remember like me and Jake, the guy I was living with, I'm like, no way, dude, this guy just retweeted me. This is crazy. And I just reached out to him because one, I was like, I actually liked what Kyle did, because one of our players trained there named Connor Wilkinson, and he let me borrow HTKC. So I read it like overnight.
The Matty D version or the Bodie version?
No, the OG version.
OG version.
Yeah, so he let me read that book, and it like blew my mind. And then one day, I just decided to DM Kyle, and part of this was like, yeah, I'm kind of rambling now, but like McKinley, the head coach at Menlo, who's like one of my best friends and a mentor of mine. Like one of his things is like every morning when the coaches got into the cage or into the office, they have to write a thank you letter to someone that's like impacted them, and then he would mail it for you, or you could do it like via email. So that morning I decided to do it to Kyle. Like I just sent him a message. Hey Kyle, really appreciate all you've done for the industry and for me. And like, thanks for the retweet. Love your stuff. I read your book. Couldn't put it down. And he responds with like, oh, awesome. Like, I love what you're doing. And then, fast forward a few weeks later, he hit me up. He's like, we're thinking about getting into hitting. Do you want to fly out the Driveline and check it out? And we were like getting ready for the playoffs. So Jake, I felt bad. Like I didn't know how to ask him, but I told Jake, like, look, this opportunity is, arising. And Jake's the homie. He's like, heck yeah. Like you better freaking go, dude. Like you better go. Because at the time I was making $5,000 a year, and I was living in the office at Menlo College, like sleeping on the floor in the office. And, so I flew to Seattle. Kyle flew me to Seattle. I saw the place. There were like 7 employees were there. I think Tyke and Matt and Marsh. Yeah. And a few others. I'm drawing a blank now.
When was this? But what was the
2016 probably?
It's 2016. Yeah, this is like end of the spring or end of the season, college season 2016. So probably like June. No, before June. May 2016. And I was actually going to Sweden to play to be a player manager that summer. So Kyle more or less like offers me the job on the spot.
Yeah.
He's like, you're going to make like way more than, not way more, but more than $5,000 a year. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. And yeah,
6K, baby.
Yeah, let's go. But yeah, I was like, I'm going to Sweden to play, and like I've always wanted to do this. So Kyle's like, yeah, dude, like heck yeah, enjoy it, live it up. When you come back, like we'll start up hitting. And September 21st, 2016, it was that first day at Driveline, and kind of started from scratch. And Kyle was like honest as he always is, right? It was like, I don't know if this is a sustainable business, if the hitting department's ever going to work, but we'll give it a shot. We'll give you a couple of years and see what happens. Gave me a credit card and said like, go build this thing and go hire your staff and get it done. And it was terrifying, but it was a challenge, and I loved every second of it. And, we're still work in progress, but pretty happy to be here in 2020 and still doing good work. And kudos to you guys too for pushing the department forward with a lot of things you've done, and hopefully, the best is yet to come.
Yeah. Have you seen the new facility? Have you like been in it?
No, I literally have not
Dude,
been in.
it's ridiculous.
Dude, if you're trying to say what's up in person, I'm coming in Wednesday.
I'll be there. I'm coming in tomorrow morning.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I'll be in tomorrow morning too.
You got a spot in Nashville now?
Yeah.
So I got a spot to stay when I come visit them.
Better believe it, dude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Just bring some of that hair product because I need some too.
I got you, dude.
Dude, that's the thing. Actually, I always give. I actually forgot about this until you just mentioned hair product. I always give Och mad props, but also give him a little bit of shit because I think Och has some of the best hair at Driveline. And he always wears a hat, dude. This guy has really good hair, really good style, and he always comes in with a hat and just like kind of like
there it is, dude.
Dresses down, dude. You know what I think it is, Och? I think you just look too much like a pretty boy, dude. If you like put a little bit of effort, so people just won't trust you. You know, people are like, dude, this guy's way too like swaggy. There's no way he knows anything about the grunt and grind of hitting.
That could be. No, I think I appreciate your comments on my hair, especially coming from you.
I was gonna
You got
say
the best eyebrows at Driveline. No question.
that's true, dude. And the thing about my eyebrows is you actually can't see how long they are on camera, but they often wrap around my head and get lost in my bun. Oh yeah, last question for me. Actually, two last questions. Are you actually good at golf? And actually, answer the first question. I'll come in with the heat on the second one.
I'm okay. I'm playing at a 12.1 handicap exactly right now, so I'm usually between like 83 and 88, more or less.
All right, and now that you dropped your golf creds, what's up with your personal life? Are you single?
Single, dude. I mean, ever since spring training, I've more or less been quarantined, so not exactly the best environment for dating.
Single
Frankly,
by choice. Single by choice.
I've been single by choice. Yeah, totally my fault on me. No,
100% by choice.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, there you heard it. A 12.1 handicap, who's a Phillies hitting coordinator, is currently single.
HP
We got
intern.
lots of ladies watching this podcast, Jay. So we're gonna hook you up, dude.
8% based on anchor stats. 8%, and half of that 8% is all our girlfriends
And parent moms.
True.
Yeah, actually, shit. Yeah, I think that leaves two single.
Yeah.
Well, not even single. Two girls that we don't know who they are that are watching this podcast. Because another one of them is Louisa too.
Yeah. All right, Jay, you got any questions for us?
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Layup question.
Yeah. If you guys were me, what would you be interested in learning and or doing with what I do with the Phillies and with Driveline?
Lindley, what'd you say?
Workload for sure.
Yeah.
I'm big interested
that.
in. We're getting into it, or we've been getting, or like Modus have been investigating it a lot. We acquired them, and we're like doing some work with Workload for pitching. And I've talked to some of the hitting trainers, Judo specifically, about hitting workload, and think there could be a lot there if we can kind of dial that in. Just tune programs, especially like during the season when there's, you mentioned earlier, like taking really heavy hacks in the on deck circle, like may not be the best thing for your physical like readiness, so that'd be really interesting for me.
Yeah,
I was going to say one of the things we've been working on lately in gym is integrating a lot of high performance metrics with our skill metrics. So a lot of that is from our force play metrics, but like I'd be really, really curious what that would look like across an elite athlete population, an elite large athlete population, where everyone kind of has a standardized but very like discrete and quantitative HP assessment, and then matching that up with any sort of like predicted bat speed numbers off just HP, and using that to kind of direct where hitters are in terms of like physicality versus like the more finesse skills that get involved in hitting.
Yeah, I like
Beautiful.
workload. I like workload a lot, but I mean, this isn't really a hitting answer, but I I guess I don't really know what goes on, but I still think there's a ton of low hanging fruit in position player throwing. Like,
dude, 1,000% agree.
Yeah.
Catcher pop time, baby.
Yeah, like on the catching side, I think of that, but even just like outfielders, infielders, like I think there's got to be like a ton of position player throwing programming, low hanging fruit in terms of just like how much, better they could get defensively if they're like, pull down went up 8 miles an hour. And for anyone who hasn't done any type of like velocity, throwing training like that, that's so easy, especially for like already, super strong and really athletic people. So I guess like my answer is throwing on the hitting side.
Dude, I could not agree more. And like I mentioned early on this call, like being able to see the big leaguers or like the guys that are close compared to the other players.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that's so obvious when you watch a big league player, like especially like even like a shortstop, like people underestimate how good of a freaking arm you have to play shortstop. Like these guys throw the ball so hard, so fast, so accurate. It's like insane.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like there's so many players, like guys that come to Driveline that are amateurs that want to get drafted and they play. They play anywhere really, but like they play infield, and they just have like a poo arm. It's like, dude, no scout is ever going to sign you. Like you have to have a good arm. You can't, especially now with like all the defensive analytics that these guys are getting. Like you can't have a negative arm and play unless you like absolutely freaking rake. And that's true of outfield, all three spots. That's true of like basically any infield spot and catching. Like that's just a fact. I couldn't agree more.
Especially with guys that can already like swing, like they can already rotate well, or they know how to like move well in that movement. Like throwing isn't that far off. So as far as like transitioning that, and maybe like I think like position players are the ones that get left out to dry with like they're still operating their throwing mechanics off of like youth baseball coach, right? Like in high school, it's not like they have like intense like throwing mechanics stuff, so they're still doing like the like break your hands in parallel type thing. Whereas if you just gave them like a little bit of instruction in throwing and maybe like some drills here and there, I feel like they could all just like rip. It'd be way more effective.
Yeah, I don't think it's just like the velocity too. It's also like you said, the technique and and like how the actual like the movement of the pitches like or the throws. Like I'll tell you, like I played a lot of defense the last 6 months, and it's crazy how many infielders throw cutters or like outfielders throw like sinkers, and like they're obviously like efficiencies off, or they're like doing something where they could immediately gain like more carry on their throws, or like the time from release to like target, so to speak, would immediately like an elementary level pitch design session would fix like some issues that could be career changing for position players.
And arguably the throws from the outfield, things like spin efficiency matter way, like I guess you can't really make this argument, but like more than pitching, because it's got so much time in the air. Like it's gonna have a huge impact on
distance wise.
On the flight of the ball. If you can like improve your efficiency by 5%, 10%.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a 60-foot pitch having like 15 to 20 inches of horizontal break based on like how you release that, like extrapolate that out to a 300-foot throw, like you're talking about like if you can better manipulate your like axis or just get a feel for, like I think there's value in just like telling a player that that's how they throw. Like people who like hook or slice in golf and then them setting up to like play for it, like letting an outfielder know that like, yeah, I mean, on average, you're probably going to get like 5 to 8 feet of, like right break on your throw from the outfield. Like just like telling them that I think is valuable, right?
You can gain 10 feet of vertical movement.
Dude, that too, man.
Here's an interesting hypothetical I just thought of. What proportion, obviously it's low, but it's not non-zero. What proportion of position players switch over to pitching either in college or the minor leagues? And what proportion do you think would actually like switch over if all of them kept training like pitching and hitting, right? Because there's got to be like a fair bit of late bloomers, I imagine, in terms of arm strength. And if every single position player in the system was also doing, say, like whatever, like pivot picks and general like more controlled like pitch design sessions or something like that. If for whatever, like imagine had the bandwidth to be equally trained pitching and hitting, like what proportion in addition would potentially be actually better pitchers than position players? Do you guys think that's a thing at all?
I think that.
Yeah, I think that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to say that I think that the majority of like position player to pitcher transitions are because they weren't pitchers, because their arms are just like healthier. Like there's no like injury or like major surgery history from like the wear and tear of like pitching. Like a ton of guys that are just like shortstops and like that's the only time they throw, or outfielders, like that transition's easy just because of like arm health, not saying like, training regimen or whatever. And I think that's why that switch would make more sense, at least to me. They're also just like way more athletic. I think that would help a ton.
Yeah. I totally think the best throwers on the field are like routinely your shortstops and your catchers that just throw from like 1,000 different constraints and different arm slots and different like, types of spin. Like you mentioned, like guys will throw from here and they'll automatically like calibrate knowing they're going to get like 4 feet of run compared to when they come over the top, they'll aim, like all these little like subtle kinematic adjustments they make. They just have immaculate touch plus velocity. And like, I'm sure like there's a reason when you see position players like come in the pitch, they always throw strikes.
Yeah. I guess that's actually a good point. It'd actually probably be terrible in some instances to like tell people like an outfielder how much that like their throw is going to move, because you might just like yip them up like
auto yips.
Dude. You imagine telling a shortstop like, if you throw from that angle, you're going to get like 3.5 feet of run, and he's just like calibrating in his head, like, trying to turn double play, like so yipped up about it now. Yeah, that could come back really bad.
I had a pitcher in Sweden that had the yips, and one day he tells me, he goes, "Hey, when you're long tossing, like what angle do you throw it at?" And I was like, "Oh my god, this guy's fucked."
Dude.
And he threw it. He literally next throw like 80 feet over the target, like into like a hockey arena behind him. I'm like, this guy's toast.
Dude, I did that with a catcher once who like only threw cutters back. And the first time I asked him, I was like, "How do you throw a cutter back every time?" And it was just like yips after that. He had no idea. He was just like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, the ball cuts every time, and it was just fucking just everywhere after that. It's so bad.
That's tough. Yeah, I gotta take a piss. I'll be right back.
No, we're good. No. We got to wrap the podcast. This is our longest podcast ever. All right, we got to wrap the podcast. Ochart's already walked off.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks Ochart for coming on.
Yeah, I also
hit up Ochart on Hinge if you're one of our 3 interested single female listeners.
Yeah, it was good. Hour and 20-minute podcast is like our longest. Damn. All right, everyone. We'll see you. See you next week.
See you next week. Peace.